What's a reasonable figure to think of for FDI for this next fiscal year, 2018, 2019?
Well, what we're talking about this year is around $10 billion. So, look, I'm not...
10 billion for the next year?
No, 17, 18, it was supposed to be 10 billion. So I don't like initially to fancy myself with big numbers. Look, I believe when Egypt came out of the difficult time that it has gone through, I think as the time goes by and as investors sees Egypt, things are improving and that there's no fatigue in the economic reform that we're doing. I think more and more we'll see people coming. I think we can grow next year by hopefully 20-25% if we achieve the 10 billion this year.
Where are the biggest investors? Is it still the GCC?
Not necessarily. We see multinational companies that are thinking seriously of expanding in Egypt, use it as a hub for around the region and for the markets within Africa as well. So we see it coming from local investors, regional as well as global investors as well.
How do you close the gap? I know the ambitions of legislation about encouraging investment, but then there's the reality. What are you physically doing to close the gap between the ambition of legislation and the reality of releasing land and pieces of paper, making it work?
Look, when it comes to the execution on the ground, that's one of the big challenges. That you push forward the facilitation of investors working in Egypt, availing the lands, giving the approvals rather quickly. We never said that we're out of this. There is bureaucracy that still exists that we're, fighting it day in and day out and really resolving issues as much as we can. And we all the time we would like to have a sort of a win-win situation with investors. Investors need to come to Egypt to make good returns, and the country needs to make use of that as well in terms of hiring people, labor, reducing the unemployment rate.
Balancing the books, you're getting ready for the next budget. It's a question on every journalist's mind, and they all ask you, so I need some facts from you. Is it still the target of your administration to remove the vast majority of fuel subsidies by the end of 2019?
Look, the thing is, what we learned from the history and how bad a file like this have really affected us very, very negatively. Again, what we do is that we're trying to make an important part of the economy, which is the energy sector, by its two wings, oil and gas and electricity on the other side, sustainable and being able to invest and grow as well in the future. So it is important for us with an announced plan, not only with the IMF program, but even before that the country is working on rebalancing the situation when it comes to this. So it's an important thing. And what we do is to make sure that whatever economic reform action that takes place is balanced well with the social safety net that we push within the budget as well.
Will you tolerate a little bit higher inflation if you have to, with higher oil prices, to remove the subsidies, higher oil prices? Will you tolerate a little bit more inflation?
Let me tell you something. When you talk about inflation, people mixed up things last year or when we did the economic reform, because there were more than one action, which is value-added tax, move on oil and gas. But at the same time, there was the flotation of the currency, which was the big thing inside
yes.
of all that. The other things, when we look at what happened before, it was not as bad. But the target that we have for the end of the year for the inflation target is around 13%. My opinion, it could be around 11 to 13% by the end of the year. And what we're seeing of inflation on a monthly basis, that we're going on a good momentum so far. We're seeing in the 4 months together, the level of inflation is at 1%.